Radio 2.
At the news desk, Colin Berry.
The Health Secretary, Mr Kenneth Clarke, has defended the government against strong criticism from the Commons Agriculture Committee over its handling of the controversy surrounding Salmonella in eggs. The committee said advice on cooking eggs should have been issued more quickly, but Mr Clarke said the government's actions had shown that it took the problem seriously, and he denied that he'd been slow to clear up confusion after Mrs Edwina Currie's comment that much of the country's egg production was infected with Salmonella. The latest trade figures show Britain's balance of payments deficit was £1,700 million in January. The deficit was much bigger than expected, with imports of consumer goods continuing to grow. The Shadow Chancellor, Mr John Smith, was asked for his view of the figures.
It's bad news for Britain. It shows that the government's economic policy is badly off course. We've got a serious balance of payments deficit, which is getting worse. As opposed to a prediction of 4 billion, it was 14 billion for last year. These figures would work out at 20 billion for a year.
Armed robbers have ambushed a security van at Perivale in West London. The crew of the van were held up at gunpoint as robbers demanded cash. With a report from the scene, Peter Bowes.
The security van was sandwiched between the lorry and a transit van. Poles similar to telegraph poles were strapped to the open-top lorry to form a battering ram. Two men emerged and poured petrol on the security van and threatened to set it alight. Cash bags were then handed over to them. As the robbers were escaping, the police arrived. The officers were threatened with a handgun. One shot was fired, but no one was injured. The men escaped in another car, and it's believed they may have fled empty-handed.
One of the paediatricians at the centre of the Cleveland child abuse controversy, Dr Marietta Higgs, has begun a High Court action against the Northern Regional Health Authority. She's seeking an injunction to prevent the authority taking disciplinary measures against her without a formal National Health Service inquiry. And that's the news. Now, at the sports desk, here's John Inverdale.
And some news just in the past few minutes. The president of the governing body of European football, UEFA, Jacques Georges, has said that English clubs will not be readmitted to European competitions while the British government doesn't support their application. The sports minister, Colin Moynihan, said yesterday it was inconceivable that English clubs would be allowed back next year. And according to Mr Georges, if the government says no, UEFA cannot say something else. The Dundee striker Tommy Coyne has joined Celtic for £500,000. He scored 37 goals last season for the Tayside club. A reminder, we have a soccer special on Radio 2 medium wave this evening even. That's at 8 o'clock. And that will feature the Littlewoods Cup semi-final second leg between Luton and West Ham. Frank Bruno has denied rumours that he's to retire from boxing. At a news conference today, Bruno said he'd need a few weeks' rest before deciding about his career. But manager Terry Lawler said a decision on Bruno's future would be left entirely to the boxer himself. Latest snooker news from the British Open in Derby. Cliff Thorburn and Mike Hallett are level at 2 frames each in their fifth round match. And it's also 2-2 between John Parrott and Doug Mountjoy. Both those games are the best of 9 frames. And some advanced news on Saturday's big rugby match at Twickenham between France and England. The centre Philip Seller has been told not to train until Friday at the earliest to allow him to get over a bout of flu and a groin strain. Now the first racing results of the day. At Worcester, 2:30, number 2, Fremantle, 4-1. 1, Au Bon, 6-4. 3, Red Hackle, 11-4 favourite. At Wetherby, 2:15, number 9, Green Hills Pride, 9-1. 3, Rosie's Member, 5-1. 4, MacArthur, 13-2. And the 2:45, number 1, Conway Grove, 8-1. 5, Water Wagtail, 2-1 favourite. And 7 Ran. That's our sport for the moment. More for you just after 4.